Here. Okay, great. So it is 10 o'clock. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm sure people will continue trickling in. Hello everyone, and welcome to our April MCLS special on participatory design and math cognition and learning research. I'm really glad you all could join us today. So today we're going to hear from 4 emerging scholars who are using participatory design and innovative ways to shape research on math cognition and learning. Each speaker will give a short lightning talk, and we'll have some time for a couple questions after each presentation. If we have extra time at the end of all the presentations, we'll save it for general discussion where we can reflect together on some of the themes that emerge over the talks. So this is an informal discussion-based session that highlights how participatory design can help bridge the gap between research and practice in math education. Thanks again for everyone being here. And with that, we can go ahead and get started. And so Emily can go ahead and share your screen and begin.
Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay. Yeah, then I will start. My name is Xia Yang, but you can call me Emily. It will be easier to pronounce. I'm a first-year PhD student at the University of Toronto. So I'm kind of present some ideas. It's not even a project yet. I'm just doing some kind of proposal. So I'm thinking about doing participatory design in probability education, using coin tossing experiments to correct human beings' misconceptions and then enhance the understanding. Um, Probability misconceptions have deep roots. For example, the problem of points was a problem that kind of lasted for hundreds of years, and it was finally solved by Pascal and Fermat in 1654. The problem is quite simple. Two players, A and B, play a fair game, like toss a coin, such that the first player who wins the first 6 rounds wins a prize. But the game stops. So A has won a total of 5 rounds and B won 3 rounds. How can people separate the prize between A and B? There are some famous mathematicians at the 17th century. They think the possible outcomes are A wins the first round, B wins the first round, A wins the second round. And there are totally 4 outcomes, but that's wrong. Their probability is 3 out of 4. That's wrong because they think that, yeah, in reality, the intuition is when A wins the first round, there will be no game afterwards. And when B wins the first round or A wins the second round, there will be no game afterwards. And then Fermat pointed out that there should be 8 outcomes. Even that A wins the first round, you should still consider what happens afterwards. And he knows that it's not going to happen in real life, but you need to consider all the outcomes because that will count equally likely outcomes. So the correct probability is 7/8. Yeah, even today, it's hard to understand. So people use, like, this is kind of from Pascal, people use probability tree to present why we should consider all the outcomes that's not going to happen in real life. Yeah, and then they developed the modern probability theory. And nowadays, the misconceptions still exist. For example, in a study of 364 prospective teachers, mathematics teachers, when they are asked a question like, which of the following is the least likely result of 6 flips of a fair coin? The correct answer should be A, 5 heads and 1 tail, because there's only 6 ways for 5 heads and 1 tail to occur. And the total outcome is 6 to the power of 6, 2 to the power of 6. But only 23 teachers, like 21.7% of the teachers answered it correctly. And most of them think no matter what the result is, the outcome should be equally likely to occur. And this result kind of, they have the same kind of performance in the 3 studies. Overall, only 21% of the mathematics teachers answered it correctly, and about 70.8 teachers have the misconception. And they also named the misconception as the fallacy of composition. And what is the fallacy of composition? I noticed this misconception when I'm teaching my own class. There are young children in primary school, and when asked, you toss 2 identical coins, what is the probability of getting 1 head and 1 tail? Many students say, oh, it's equally likely that you get two tails, two heads, or one head and one tail. So the probability is 1/3. But in reality, the real probability should be 1/4 because head, tail, head are two different outcomes, but they can't identify that they are like different outcomes. They think they are the same. And when they are taught probability of independent events, like they don't use the classical definition of probability, they use probability to calculate probability. They get the same wrong answer. They think it doesn't matter what happens. It just always like 1/2 for anything to happen. So the result should be 1/4. They fail to recognize there is an order in head and the tail. And this kind of encouraged me to look for teaching methods to correct their misconception. And I think they need some hands-on activities so they get to know what is probability and why their understanding of probability, especially compound events, are wrong. So I'm asking the first question, how does participation in coin tossing experiments affect students' understanding of experimental probability compared to theoretical probability? And the second, what role do coin tossing experiments involving compound events, like toss 2 coins or 3 coins, play in addressing students' misconceptions about a probability, including sample space and equally likely outcomes? And then I have 4 steps in my research design. This is just my plan. The first step is just some hands-on activity about simple event, just toss 1 coin, and they get to know what is probability. The second is they will run experiments on compound events, but there will be 3 different experiments, and they will use the 3 different experiments to identify their misconception. And then I will kind of using tree diagram to visualize the thinking process to consolidate their understanding of probability. And the 4th step is just to test whether they have corrected misconceptions and whether they can use the correct logic to solve novel tasks. So now in step 1, what do? I already did it in my own class. That is, I ask every student to toss a coin 10 times and record how many has and calculate the experimental probability. And then I aggregate the class data showing the histogram. Actually, the histogram it's an animation, it will move based on their data. So I ask them to toss the coin again 10 times or 20 times and aggregate the data again. And they realize that the probability kind of converge at a number called 0.5. Yeah, and then I use Python simulation to explain that is the law of large numbers. So this kind of relate experimental probability to theoretical probability. And that's why people use theoretical probability to represent experimental probability. Okay, so this experiment just to help them understand the probability and to build a connection between experimental probability and the theoretical probability. The second step is they will be asked a question, like if you toss 2 coins, what result is most likely? I presented in the beginning. Some students or most students say the probability is 1/3. Each one is going to happen equally likely. And then I designed 3 experiments. The first experiment is they toss 2 identical coins. And the second experiment toss 2 distinguishable coins, like coins with different colors. And the third step is toss 1 coin twice. And they were given a table. Like they will, just like the first experiment, they will record the data. And then they will kind of notice that, oh my God, when the data goes up, the probability will converge at a number. And this number is different from their intuition. And then I will use Python simulation again to show the real probability. Okay, the 3 experiments will allow them to compare the difference. Like experiment 1 and experiment 2, they will understand what is equally likely outcomes, that the order of heads and tails matter. And the third experiment, they will understand what is independent events. So these 3 experiments will help them to correct their misconception, ideally. And then third step is using tree diagrams to answer the question again, to visualize the thinking process and consolidate their understanding. Yeah, and then the 4th step will be given a novel task, like toss 3 identical coins. See whether their answer is 1/8. If they think 2 heads and 1 tail, just 1 event. But this event can be composed of 3 different orders, like head, head, tail, head, tail, head, head. So this task will just want to know whether students have corrected the misconception or whether they have figured out how to write down all the sample space and how to find the theoretical probability. Yeah, so this is the learning trajectory. They understand probability through experiments and they identify their misconception and then they learn explicitly how to model their thinking process and then to test whether they really understand it. Yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. So we have time for 1 or 2 questions. So if you have a question, you can maybe raise your hand and give you a minute here. Questions. Yeah, so I had a question. If you could tell me a little bit more, I think I missed this, but what age group or like grade level this task is like designed for, and then if it would be if students would be participating like in a like by themselves or if they'd be participating in groups or with pairs. Love to hear about that.
I kind of come up with this idea through my math competition team. Yeah, I have several math competition team, and this is for students in grade 4, 5, 6. Like they're not in middle school, primary school. They're beginning to learn probability, and they did the experiment alone, not in group. They just toss their own coin and then they record the number, but they report the number to me, and then I put the number in my computer and to visualize their results.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. It was really interesting. And I think Valerie, you are up next. I'll go ahead and have you share your screen and begin when you're ready.
So can everyone see it? So I will start talking right now. So my name is Valerie. I'm currently working as a research assistant in Dr. Jenny's team. So I will become a graduate student in the coming semester. So it's nice to share about our work with everyone today. So we wanted to share something about we did for participatory design. So I will start talking about, for me, what is participatory design. I know it's a research methodology that involves partnership with stakeholders in the design process. I would say that it wasn't just a methodology, it's also a set of like values that prioritize collaboration with users, educators, and also the communities. So it actually empowers parents, teachers, and also children to define problems, like what Emily said, and also generate ideas and co-create solutions. So for me, participatory design is critical because it actually ensures the intervention tools are culturally relevant, feasible, and ethically grounded. So in contexts like early math education in Hong Kong, where I live, where the academic pressures often overshadow developmental needs. So aligning tools with real-world needs to benefit students first and foremost. When we are designing activities that connect math to their daily lives, like budgeting at a market or measuring ingredients in cooking, we actually empower children to see learning as meaningful, not just a test to pass, but the impact goes further. Educators could actually benefit from tools that reduce reliance on rote memorization, allowing them to nurture curiosity. Families and communities may benefit when they are invited as co-designers, shifting their roles from passive observers to like trusted partners. So I think it's not just about creating a game or an intervention alone. It's about like building a trust and also ownership so that the communities feel invested in the outcome. When stakeholders are co-designers, they actually become advocates, not just users. So let me share an example from the project I currently work on in Dr. Jenny's team. So the project named Playful Learning of Math Equivalence, design, testing, and analysis a game with children and also caregivers. So this project aims to design a math game with children, parents, and teachers to teach foundation math concepts like equivalence. Through a series of 5 co-design workshops, we collaborated with 23 parents, 5 teachers, and also 6 children in the phase 1 as equal partners in creating this culturally reasoned math board game. So I will share from workshop 1. So for workshop 1, we actually have caregivers and teachers collaboratively define a typical 5-year-old child first. It's a process for them to anchoring the game's mechanism to developmental needs that are identified by the parents. For example, like 5-year-old may have short attention spans, or they are interested in the playground, right? So participants then individually generate game ideas based on the people that they have imagined, the user, the typical 5-year-old children. So they use things like blocks and cards, democratically voting to prioritize 2 game ideas that balance both fun and also learning. So this kind of rapid ideation ensured diverse perspective drove early design directions. So we building on workshop 1, caregivers actually play tested the early prototypes, like exploding playing points like overly complex rules. Teachers actually propose some simplifications like we need to clarify the win conditions. The irritation happens in real time, which is a hallmark of participatory design, ensuring the game evolves through collaborative problem solving. So then came on with workshop 3 and 4, where we actually focused on co-designing 2 critical scaffolding strategies. The first one will be number relation skills. So caregivers design verbal cues like which set has more, and also gestures like spacing blocks to show the magnitude, to promote concepts like greater than or equal to. And another part is relational language. So we prioritize culturally adopted term in Cantonese and pair them with all the gestures, like parallel palms stands for equal. So playtesting showed that these kind of strategies actually reduce children's confusion during the game and also make those kind of abstract math concepts more tangible. And then finally, in workshop 5, we actually piloted the game with the children and also parents to refine it based on their feedback. We have some observational data. It actually reviewed that the recurring challenges, including like chronological confusion with rule interpretation. For example, most of the children actually require the examiner or the parents to repeat their instruction once more. So it's a complex game for children. So these kind of insights actually promoted us to do some in-moment adjustment. So like simplify the game mechanism so that it's more suitable for the children. Like for example, the original game actually included positive and negative symbols at the same time to represent moving forward and backward. However, parents and also children, based on their prior experiences, they believe that the negative sign is too difficult for children, so we actually removed those parts. And then those who have already joined our workshops or have reported that they all enjoy the process while we learn together and also share ideas from different perspectives. One of the participants also shared that this workshop allows us to play the game, the innovative math element board game, to let them know they can actually incorporate math into daily life. And doing so, they can understand the other parents' new ideas or other perspective of learning. So I won't say like looking ahead, I actually envision the following directions to expand participatory design's impact. I think it's beyond tools into analysis. So we have already seen how caregivers' insight to refine our interventions like the math game. Now, like we wanted to extend participatory design to the analysis phase. So when caregiver co-analyze data, we move forward equitable knowledge co-creation. For example, involving parents and teachers in the co-designing coding schemes. So they can, for those kind of qualitative data, their life experience can help us capture nonsense like in children's learning behaviors. For instance, like using hand and gestures to represent numbers. So when we design with stakeholders, we don't just like build a better intervention or better tools. We actually build a bridge between research and practice. And then the people could be the best. And then the people, because the best solution are never created alone. Yeah, so that's basically everything that I wanted to share with us. And thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to speak up, or you can raise your hand as well. We have time for a couple questions.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end you mentioned that coding by parents, like, could you please explain that a little bit? Because I think it's really new.
Yeah, so we are imagining in phase 3, we will collaborate with parents and teachers to develop a coding scheme. For example, like we will share the play session with the parents and teachers, so they can figure out what kind of gestures or language that they think it's really important to understand what children are learning or what is their developmental needs, like which aspect they are being lack of, or they need what part of what part of things that they need to like scaffolding the most,
So
like
will
sort
you
of thing.
compare, yeah,
What?
so will you compare researchers and the parents coding?
We are thinking of like merging them into one, so involving all participants' ideas and also researchers' ideas to co-develop a one scope coding scheme.
Thank you.
You.
Any other questions? Yep. Sean?
Thanks for the very interesting talk, Valerie. I also find co-developing coding scheme very interesting, and also your process of co-developing the workshop where you use feedbacks from caregivers to refining and revising the contents. I wonder, based on your experience, when is the optimal point to like stop changes and this is good enough, or do you just keep revising to it's a continual process even during the research?
Yeah, so it's actually a continuous process during workshop 1 to workshop 4. So we are actually building upon one workshop and keep refining. After 4 workshops, we have a finalized one and structured one, which like most of the researchers are happy with it. And then we have workshop 5 to actually collect all the parents' feedback at once, and then we go ahead and to refine that game to play with the children to see is there any difficulties or is there the same problem show up once again, and then to refine that one. I know it's hard to like stop to understand the stop point, right? But I know we can't keep changing it when we need to make that into an intervention, right? So the final point for us is workshop 5, where we collect the feedback at once and also get the feedback from the children that time.
All right, awesome. Thanks again. So, Xuan, you are up next if you want to go ahead and share your screen and begin when you're ready.
Can you see my screen all right? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Shuyan. I'm a postdoc researcher from the Department of Cognitive Science at Carleton University. And today I'm excited to share with you our recent work in mathematics learning and teaching using participatory design. So participatory design for me, as summarized nicely by Valerie just now, it relies heavily on this collaborative and collective efforts between researchers and stakeholders like educators, policymakers, edtech companies to answer questions that are important up to both sides, such as how to better teach math, how to let children better learn math. And in our work, we look at and study assessment and instructions in mathematics in ecological classroom settings with researchers and educators co-develop and evaluate those evidence-based instructions and interventions. This collaboration between educators and researchers works great because both sides have so much to offer. For educators, they offer great insights based on their first-hand teaching experiences in how to design the materials of instruction and intervention and parental communication and actually administering those teaching components to their own students and help us collect data and scoring the assessment and sharing the data input. And as researchers, we help with experiment design and ongoing support by holding monthly meetings with the educators and also providing teacher professional development workshops, offer help with data management, analysis, and report writing. So now I'm going to share with you one example. We are working at a 12-week numeracy intervention through this participatory design. This project is led by Alex Kozak, who is a math lead from the Upper Grant District School Board in Canada, and Dr. Heather Douglas from Carleton University. This 12-week numeracy intervention involved over 500 grade 3 students who were identified as needing additional support in mathematics. And they participated in this intervention in 3 cycles using a waitlist control design. So our students were assessed at 4 different time points using a screener called EMA at school, Early Math Assessment at School, which I'm going to detailedly introduce in a second. And between 2 assessment points, students completed the intervention in 3 different cycles. Students in cycle 1 completed the intervention first between time 1 and time 2, while the other 2 cycles of students were in the waitlist control group. And then students in cycle 2 participated in intervention between time 2 and time 3, whereas students in cycle 3 were in the waitlist. And finally, students in cycle 3 completed the same intervention between time 3 and 4. And at each testing point, students were assessed their foundational numeracy skills using the screener developed by Dr. Heather Douglas and Dr. Joanne Lefebvre. This screener targets on the key foundational numeracy skills that are age appropriate. For example, for grade 3 students in this current study, they completed a number writing task where they hear a number word and need to write out the digits. And then they completed a number comparison task where they need to choose the larger of the 2 digits. And then a number ordering task where they see 3 numbers and need to judge whether the numbers were in the ascending order or not. A number line estimation task where students estimate where a number is on the number line by marking on the line. And then an equation filling task where they see a blank in the equation and need to use their knowledge of equivalence to fill in the blank fast and accurately. And finally, a arithmetic fluency task where students need to solve single-digit addition, subtraction, and multiplication questions fast and accurately. And between each testing points, students completed the intervention in 3 different cycles. And those interventions last for 12 weeks with 30 minutes of a lesson each day. The intervention was conducted in small groups settings and all led by math support teachers in the school, and they were trained by math leads on how to conduct the intervention and using a structurized intervention schema. So during these 12 weeks, each week features a topic, and the whole logic is to first build the fluency and knowledge of each subcomponents of the number skills, and then moving on to combining different skills altogether. So the sequence starts with the understanding and usage of number lines. So that's the topic of the first week, and then moving on to number comparison, number ordering, operations, and equations. And then during the second phase, the intervention really focuses on how to use the number lines for comparison and ordering, and then using number lines for doing operations and equations. So what do you find? So here I'm showing the results of the total mathematics assessment scores on the y-axis by the testing times across the 3 cycles of students. At time 1, all the students starts about at the same level. And a reminder that between time 1 and time 2, only students in cycle 1 received this 12-week numeracy intervention. And what we found is that after the intervention, cycle 1 students outperformed cycle 2 and cycle 3 who were in weightless control at time 2, suggesting that intervention worked. So do we see the same pattern from time 2 to time 3, where now only cycle 2 students received the intervention? So what we found is that the same pattern, cycle 2 students after the intervention outperformed their older selves before the intervention. Also, they reached the same level of math achievement as cycle 1, and both cycle 1 and cycle 2 students outperformed students in cycle 3 who were still on the waitlist control. And also we found that for cycle 1 students, they also remained the relatively high performance level, even though between time 2 and 3, they did not get extra intervention, which suggests that not only the intervention worked, they also maintained after a delay. And finally, we replicated the same learning pattern with cycle 3 students. So although we see promising intervention effects, reminder that those students are students needing extra support, those who are at the lower 25th% in the screening. Even after the intervention, there's still a gap between these students and the rest of the students. So indicating that although this intervention really boosts their foundational numeracy skills, but to keep the progress and moving on, high quality tier 1 instruction is also very important. So for more information of this study, feel free to check out our M Collective website and our M Collective Voices podcast, which Liza will going to introduce in more details in the next talk. So for me, this whole experiences of incorporating participatory design into my research really gives me a lot of insights into how to incorporate further participatory design for future work and how to find research questions that are important for both educators and researchers. And I think the 2 key points, first is partnership building, and really keep an open mind and be willing to spend some time and carve out some time to actively reach out to educators, attend to teachers' conferences, spend time on knowledge about mobilization, and find opportunities to give teachers professional development workshops to start to build this partnership and get things started. And secondly, is to be flexible in terms of experiment design and be creative, because sometimes randomized control trials are hard to implement it in participatory design situations where it is hard to really assign children in a control group where you know that some interventions are evidence-based and will help students. So some of the research methods and statistical method we can use to help go around with this situation is to use, for example, waitlist control, or using teachers' frequency check and fidelity check surveys every week, or using universal screening and use statistical techniques such as propensity score matching to construct an artificial control group. And finally, I'd like to share with you some quotes from our amazing collaborators, researchers, and educator collaborators in our last AIM Summit, which Liza is also going to introduce. And from Erin Maloney, a professor from University of Ottawa, says that the most interesting research questions come from educators. And then to quote Mac McMahon, who is the superintendent of Fort Vermilion School Division, who says that if teachers are drivers and then research is the fuel, without the research, we are just sitting on the school bus going nowhere. And they say that much better than me, but you got the big idea. And finally, thank you to our amazing educated collaborators at the Upper Grand District School Board and our amazing lab members at the Math Lab from the Carleton University. Thank you all so much for your time and listening.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Go ahead and speak up or raise your hand, either way. Yeah, I was going to ask about report writing specifically because this is something I have less experience with. So from like the, formation of your projects to, I suspect that like part of the participatory design is then like disseminating your findings like to the stakeholders. I was wondering, what does that look like? And how do you go about doing that?
Thanks for the great question. The reports we wrote are all published in our AIM Collective website, which Lisa is going to introduce. So if you want to look at what exactly components we put in the reports, feel free to check out the website. And we usually keep up with the progress report to our collaborators in the schools to let them know the results of a certain project and main components we have in that report is why early mathematics are important and using language that are understandable to a general audience to explain our methods and how the study is designed. And finally, we will report the results in also understandable plots, like the one we showed in the presentation, and to try to minimize the statistical numbers, but emphasizing the key points of the findings. So we usually just have reports ranging from 2 to 3 pages, which is much shorter if we put this together as an academical journal paper. But the gist is that to give something that is easy for educators to take away and keep the document all the projects we are doing.
Great, thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the next talk? Okay, great. Thanks again. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So Liza wasn't able to make it today, but recorded a video for us. So let me share that, and I will go ahead and start that. Okay, so everyone should be able to see this, and hopefully everyone can hear it as well. I'm going to go ahead and start it. Could people hear that? Is that no one can hear? Okay. Okay, let's troubleshoot this for a second. Let's see. How do I share sound? Advanced sharing options. Wait, that's probably not it. Does anyone know how to share sound in a shared video? Maybe I can. One moment. Ooh, share computer sound. Maybe that's. One moment here.
Talk to you about how our team is building bridges between research and practice, specifically how we use participatory design to connect educators, researchers, and students in the field of early math education. Our team leverages participatory design to connect early math research with classroom practices through a national initiative called Assessment Instruction in Mathematics, also known as the AIM Collective. So the collective is a partnership initiative that engages researchers and educators from school districts all across Canada to support the development of tools for assessment instruction mathematics learning from kindergarten all the way through to grade 4. The AIM Collective brings together a wide network of trainees and researchers and educators. And what really makes it unique is how collaborative it is. So instead of researchers designing tools for teachers, we work with them. And through every step of the way, our partnership model prioritizes teachers' expertise and lived experience in the classroom. And so our participatory design becomes the foundation of everything that we do. So our vision is to create and curate high quality math assessments and instructional strategies that support all students and reaching their full potential. And so that we know that instruction begins with understanding where a learner is. And good assessments can help with that, but only if they're developmentally appropriate, classroom friendly, and informed by what teachers actually need. So a large part of this is through our paths of communication, having open dialogue between all parties from educators to the students to the researchers. AIM wants everyone to be included in reaching the goal. So educators can help us design interventions based on the feedback received from the assessments. And by collaborating, any outputs from AIM are both meaningful and practical. And so AIM truly is a collective. The work is grounded in diverse expertise from all 3 branches that each contribute a distinct but equally valuable perspective that leads to a sense of trust and investment in both the process and the outcomes. So for example, teachers inform us about what is practical and needed in the classroom, while researchers contribute insights into development and learning. And trainees are part of the process of gaining valuable skills. So for example, as a research assistant on AIM, I'm able to participate in research projects, but I also learn new skills such as strategies used in knowledge mobilization. And that is a main part of my role. I co-lead the knowledge mobilization efforts with another grad student at Yijie called Collective Voices. And this started way back in May 2023, where we had all of our 3 branches were invited to attend a 2-day summit. And we were all split into different working groups. And the one Ayushi and I were a part of was focused on communication with the goal of bridging research and practice together. And this all ties directly into participatory design. So in AIM, PD means educators are not just recipients of research, but they're co-creators of it. It is a collaborative effort where educators are fully engaged, not just in the use of the resources, but in their conceptualization and development. So this approach enables us to develop tools that are both evidence-based and practically relevant. It also ensures that what we design is continually refined based on classroom realities. So by building opportunities for regular feedback and collaboration, this approach really becomes an iterative process. So educators, researchers, and trainees all brainstorm new ideas, help co-author material, and can co-present at conferences. And so knowledge mobilization is a large part of this. Our content comes from the work of the educators and the researchers, and we are able to share information with each other and more broadly as well. So instead of speculating what each party may want, directly sharing each other's work makes our content very relevant. And this process is what makes AIM really founded in participatory design. And so Collective Voices specifically uses a 2-pronged approach with the goal of communicating within the collective and outside with the wider community. So the main focus is within our own AIM community. We are continually trying to strengthen communication between our partners. So Collective Voices includes a website that houses all of AIM's outputs for our community to view and interact with. And we also produce newsletters that are sent within the collective to provide the team with updates on projects and any upcoming events that are important. We also host the Collective Voices podcast, where we bring on educators, researchers, and trainees to discuss and share topics related to early math education. And so our second focus is beyond AIM. We want to share tools and insights more widely to educators who are looking for meaningful, research-informed resources. And so we're working on expanding the external prong down the road, but for now, most people in the community are still able to access our growing list of resources through our website. And they're also always, of course, able to sign up through our newsletter and stream our podcast, so they can find their own way to really get involved with AIM. And overall, Collective Voices also prioritizes implementing any feedback received from within and beyond the collective. To mobilize knowledge properly, we want to hear back what is the best way to do this. And so the idea is to keep the conversation going across the nation, to make it accessible to both educators and researchers, and keep our internal community strong while building new connections across the country. And in terms of the broader outreach, our digital presence has grown steadily. Our newsletter, podcasts, and website content have been accessed by many educators and researchers across Canada and even a few outside the country. And so far, we've had over 140 people sign up to receive Collective Voices content. So this is mainly the internal collective team who are all equally invested in watching AIM grows. So these people aren't just passive subscribers, these are engaged viewers who click on the links and really want to get involved and are wanting to learn more. Our podcast series currently has 8 episodes and over 300 listeners. These episodes range from topics and issues in early mathematics to co-designing classroom tools. And this format really allows us to share stories in a guided conversation. And we've received positive feedback from members about how listening to our podcast has sparked new ideas and it really gets into the nuances around early math education. Additionally, our website has received over 4,600 visits, stressing that the community is not only hearing about AIM, but is actively seeking out and engaging with the tools and resources that we're creating. And so this level of reach and interest has really been encouraging and demonstrating that the model of participatory design between research and education really resonates widely. And so a way we've measured this growth is looking at how these parts all interconnect. From the newsletter to the podcast, the website, we really want to see how they all come together. And so on the x-axis, we have the months from May 2023, and that is when we first launched the website and hosted our first AIM Summit, all the way to March 2025. And on the y-axis, we have the number of website sessions. And so this chart illustrates the growth in traffic for AIM Collective over time. And you really notice that there are some key spikes in traffic, such as those in May 2024 and in January 2025, which corresponds closely with the release of any Collective Voices content and major AIM events. We saw a really large spike after the AIM Summit in May 2025, with the hope to see a similar one right after the next summit. And these events lead to collaboration, shared interest, prompt deeper engagement with our resources, and often lead to new initiatives. So in other words, it's not more just about seeing clicks. We're seeing more partnerships, more resources, and more educators using the tools that reflect their classroom realities. And so this graph really shows that participatory design, one structured by knowledge mobilization and strategic events like the summit, can really meaningfully expand the reach of research practice partnerships. And so looking ahead, we're already planning for the third AIM Summit in May 2025. Our numbers have doubled from the first AIM Summit to the second, with the hopes to have more attendees join us this May for our third one. And we have recently started a student knowledge mobilization committee. And the goal was to really make sure that every AIM partner has a student that can get involved, share updates, and create a wider net of collaboration across all the partners, especially among the students. And so next what we want to do is have more pre-service teachers get involved, having multiple types of students, ones that are trained to be future researchers or future educators will ensure that all voices are included from the start and can really make sure that the work continues long term. And so another central priority moving forward is to establish a stronger feedback loop. So while we already gather feedback from research projects, we want to do the same with our knowledge mobilization approaches. We did get some educator feedback at the last summit, but we had some people who are new to AIM. So accounting for the level of expertise with the collective made it a bit difficult to gain some feedback. So moving forward, we want to implement a feedback loop more formally instead of just, our communication with our partners. We want something a little bit more strategic in how we are getting this, how we're implementing feedback. And finally, we plan to co-design more interventions that are directly responsive to the needs of teachers and students. And a perfect example of how AIM wants to do this will be shared by Yijie, who will be presenting during the session as well. And in summary, AIM is an example of what can happen when research and practice truly collaborate. Participatory design gives us a framework, but it's really about making connections, and together we can build a collective. So if you're interested in learning more, you can find us at aimcollective.ca or visit the Carleton Math Lab website. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Hey, awesome. Yeah, it was really cool to hear about the media presence there. So I probably won't be able to answer the questions for Liza, but I figured we've got about 10 minutes left, so maybe we can open up a general discussion. And so also I was thinking maybe someone could throw the AIM collective link into the chat. We can get another little spike for you. But yeah, can open this up to any general questions. So feel free to throw a question out there if you have any. I of course have a few questions that I can ask. So I wanted to ask a question to really any of the speakers about whether participatory design usually involves like developing a product or a tool, or if I guess participatory design like can also include just like assessment development in a sense too. So I'd love to hear anyone talk about that.
Yeah, I can share some experiences on how participatory design can also help with developing like professional development workshops for teachers. Like those co-development of not only teaching the math content knowledge to teachers, but also teachers also know how to teach the contents to the students. So by combining the researchers' expertise in terms of knowing the development of mathematical knowledge in children and teachers' experiences in how to teach them and using a child-friendly way, co-developing this professional development workshop also helps teachers to better incorporate the framework of math development in teaching. So we have some ongoing work also led by Heather Douglas and Sandy Yeomans from Queen's University, and also Rebecca Merkley from Carleton are having some amazing professional development of to teachers. So that's not just the product or tool we can use, but something we can keep developing and revising continuously while we are implementing that to the classrooms.
Awesome, thank you. And Emily, I had a question for you as well, and I was wondering, like, if you could talk a little bit more about how the students, how your students kind of informed your design, and particularly connecting the experimental and theoretical probabilities.
Well, yeah. Before being a PhD student, I've been teaching secondary school mathematics for a decade. And then and then so far my focus is training students to take part in like AMC 8, 10, 12, and those Waterloo competitions. But mostly are like for high school students. Yeah, and this class is for my son. We have 5 kids in this class, and we're preparing for Gauss 7. And in Gauss 7, there are some problems in probability. So I teach them how to solve probability questions. And it's really interesting that if you ask them how many different outcomes when you toss 3 coins, they will say, oh, 2 to the cubic, that's 8. But when you ask what is the probability that you get 1 hat, you get three hats, they don't know. and some of them say 1 ace. And then if you ask them, what's the probability to get 2 heads and 1 tail? No idea. Like they know what is the outcome, but they don't know what is probability. So I think that it's too abstract. Probability is like a theory, very abstract. So for young children, you need to let them understand what is probability. They can't touch something, right? So the only way is they do some experiments through their like hands-on activities. So they get to know, oh, that is called probability. So yeah, so this kind of like encourages me to develop some hands-on activities for them to understand the probability. And then why law of large numbers. That's because I read a paper. It says that people always use small numbers to represent law of large numbers. They think that 100 is big enough, but actually in probability, that's not big enough. Probably 1,000 is big enough. So I'm trying to use Python simulation to show them that what is like the data will converge at some point. So they understand, oh, that is called large law of large numbers. Yeah, I haven't been doing the research. Like you need to this is kind of intervention. You need to test whether the intervention is effective. I haven't done that, but I'm planning that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was thinking like even at the undergraduate level, like I've TA'd undergrad stats, and I feel like hands-on intervention like that actually is a really nice yeah, it could be a really nice exercise for the class. So maybe you could pilot with college students. That could be cool. Any other thoughts or questions? A burning question. Okay, I think the last thing I'd love to hear about is like maybe is there like a particular challenge that you've ever encountered with participatory design that you maybe didn't anticipate? What's a challenge that you think is common in participatory design, and how would you maybe go about navigating it? This is an open question for anybody.
I think in a class, if you're teaching a class of like 30, 20 students, the problem is like, yeah, they are very happy doing experiments, hands-on activities, but then are they learning something? Can they really solve problems? They still need a lot of practice and procedures, and then how do you build this gap? Yeah, from conceptual understanding, from this happy education to real problem solving. Like, I'm interested in this like how do we bridge the gap for them?
Yeah, and maybe like teachers and the students themselves also like have, insights on how you could best do that. And any other challenges that people have encountered?
I can share a lot of challenges we have during this participatory design. And one of them is sometimes we don't have the exact control of the cleanest experimental design you usually do in a laboratory experiment design where you bring kids and they receive the exactly same amount of instruction and everything is standardized. But in classrooms, like a lot of things will happen. Like sometimes the kids will not attend school, but for the rest of the classroom, the class and intervention will still go on. And sometimes it's hard to have the exact same script for teachers to administer the intervention across the 12 weeks. And there will be different teachers administering the intervention. There will be different classrooms. So we have to keep a balance of what we want in terms of experiment design and, have exactly the same amount of children in the control and experimental group, whereas what will really happen in the classroom setting. And what we're trying to go around about that is to really document, teachers' frequency in the instruction, and they fill in a survey on like students' engagement every week and how many times they administer the instruction every week, and what strategy and which stage they are currently in this week. And it will have a lot of data in terms of how each classroom is implementing the instructions, but also, although it is not as clean as randomized control trials, but we also gain a lot of information on how the dosage work and how teacher experiences may play an effect, and what kind of interactions and dynamics that really happens in the classroom will moderate the effect of the intervention. So lots of things, lots of challenge, but a lot of things to explore.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, well, that is all we have for time today, but I appreciate the exciting conversation. I certainly learned a lot. And thank you to all the presenters for preparing their slides and for telling us about your work. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all in Hong Kong in June. So have a great rest of your day, and thanks again. Bye, everyone.